fifth grade, welcome back to grammar. This video is for April 21st. Today we're going to do some more work with adding ER and EST to words when we're comparing. But before we get into that, I want to share a little bit with you from Psalm 46. Psalm 46 was written during a time when there was a crisis in Jerusalem. Some Bible scholars think that it might have been when the Assyrian army was surrounding Jerusalem during the time of Hezekiah's reign. And it would have been a really awful, dire time if it hadn't been for two things that the Assyrian army didn't know about. They didn't know that the spring that was outside the walls of Jerusalem was protected because Hezekiah had had the people tunnel through stone to the spring, and then it was concealed, so there was still water flowing into the city of Jerusalem. And the other thing that the Assyrian army didn't count on was God's protection of his people. So in verse 1, it says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. So even though we're going through a crisis right now, something that none of us have ever experienced before, we can know that God is with us and that he is our refuge and our strength. And feeling cared for and supported can help us when we're facing a challenge. And reminding ourselves of God's promises and his presence with us can be a means to comfort our hearts and to give us courage and confidence to go through hard times. And that's just exactly what's happening right now. So I pray and hope that that will be an encouragement to you. I'm going to share some more from this psalm during the week. So today I have kind of a fun little activity that I want to do to help us remember about adding ER and EST when we compare. So remember, we add ER when we're comparing just two things. We add EST when we're comparing three or more. So I have 4 types of snacks, and I like snacks. I like chips. I always say I've never met a chip I didn't like. So I have Lay's barbecue chips, my favorite. Lay's classic chips, really good. South of the border tortilla chips, yum, and pretzels. I love them all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bite of each one, just a little bite, because I know you don't really want to watch me chew on my videos. And then I'm going to think of a word that I can use to describe that chip or that snack and compare it to one of the others. So I'm going to start with the pretzel. Okay, I love pretzels. Pretzels are good. All right, then I'm going to go to the barbecue chip. Probably one of my all-time favorites. Love barbecue chips. Okay, Lay's Classics. Can't beat those. Yum. And then South of the Border tortilla chip. Really good. Be even better if I had some guacamole to go with it. Okay, so now I'm going to think of some adjectives that I can use to compare these different chips. So I'm going to start down here with the pretzel. The pretzel, let's see, was milder than the barbecue chip. Didn't have as much flavor to it, okay? So I'm comparing the pretzel to the barbecue chip, okay? 2 things, so I add ER. All right, I'm gonna kind of work backwards here. Let's go to the tortilla chip. The tortilla chip is blank than the pretzel. Well, I think I'm going to say the tortilla chip was crispier than the pretzel. I think it's time for me to buy a new bag of pretzels. All right, the Lay's classic chip. This chip is blank than the tortilla chip. I'm going to say this chip is saltier than the tortilla chip. Okay, and salty ends with Y, so remember I have to change the Y to I and add ER. And then the Lay's chip, this is the blank chip of all. You don't think you know what I'm going to say? Yeah, I'm going to say this is the tastiest. It's one of my favorites. It is the tastiest chip of all. So in all of these, I'm just comparing two things, one chip to another, but with the Lay's barbecue, I'm comparing them to all the chips. So I add EST. It's the tastiest chip of all. So you might want to try this at home with some of your snacks. You could even use candy, whatever you want. It's a fun way to review grammar, and you get to have a tasty snack. Okay, before we go on with the worksheet that you're going to do today, let's go ahead and take a look at workbook page 240 that you did last Friday. So in the first part, you were supposed to write the ER and EST forms of the adjectives. So for number 1, heavy becomes heavier and heaviest. Make sure that you changed the Y to I before you added ER or EST. Number 2, larger, largest. You have to drop the E before you add ER or EST. And then number 3, hotter and hottest. Double the T before adding ER or EST. And then the next part, you had to underline the correct adjective or adverb. Number 4, damper. You're comparing two things, water spouts and whirlwinds, so we use ER. Number 5, highest. So of all the water spouts, it's the highest. Number 6, greatest. Number 7, longer. 8, drier. And 9, windiest. And then the next part, you had to write the correct adjective or adverb form. Number 10, safer. 11, drier. 12, denser. 13, highest. 14, flattest and driest. So check your spelling on those, make sure that you spelled them correctly. And then the last part, apply and write, I just wrote a couple sample sentences. It rained harder today than it did yesterday, and this is the lightest snowfall we have had all winter. All right, now let's take a look at the worksheet that you're going to do today, and it's more of comparing with ER and EST. So if something happens and you didn't get the worksheet or you lose it, you can always look in the PDFs in Google Classroom that go with that week's Royal Notes, and you should be able to find the worksheet there, and you can print it out. And if you can't print it, if you don't have access to a printer, then just do it on paper and that'd be fine too. So the first part, you need to write the ER and EST forms of each adjective. And then the second part, underline the correct adjective or adverb. And then the third part, write the correct adjective or adverb form. All right, have a good time working on comparing with ER and EST.